Hello there, sleepy thinkers, dreamy wanderers, and curious minds gently settling down for the night. You've found your way to Sleepy Science Story, where complex things are softened and strange wonders are slowly unwrapped like presents in the dark. Tonight, we're going to take a slow, meandering stroll through something quietly powerful: vaccines. Not in a hurry, not with urgency, just a tender unfolding of how these invisible marvels help our bodies prepare for battles we may never have to fight. It's a tale of memory, mimicry, and tiny whispers of immunity told one slow breath at a time. I hope this story isn't so interesting it keeps you awake, but if it does, may it be the kind of interest that rocks you gently into dreams. Imagine your body as a peaceful town nestled beneath a quiet sky. All the little homes hum gently with the rhythm of your heartbeat. The streetlights glow in soft pulses, your cells moving like neighbours nodding kindly as they pass. In this town, everything has a role. There are gardeners and builders, caretakers and cleaners, all of them quietly keeping the body running, even as you sleep. And just like any well-loved town, it has its own kind of watchful peace. No alarms, no panic. Just the soft buzz of life going about its evening. Now, picture a stranger arriving. Not loud or aggressive, not knocking down doors, just drifting in on a breath of air or a fingertip against your cheek. Too small to see, too quiet to hear. A virus doesn't announce itself. It doesn't flash or roar. It simply enters. It begins with a single cell. One gentle knock on the door, then a slip inside. Like a whisper in a cathedral. And suddenly, something changes. The virus doesn't live like we do. It doesn't eat or sleep or breathe. It carries just enough of itself to pretend. And that's all it needs. Once inside, it doesn't make a mess all at once. It does something far stranger. It borrows. It copies. It convinces your cell to stop, being itself for a while, and become something else entirely. A factory for more virus. It's not war, not yet. More like a very quiet theft. But your body is not defenseless, and this is where the story begins to stir. Somewhere in that peaceful town, one cell notices. Maybe a scent that doesn't belong. Maybe a message passed in secret. The immune system, which has been watching gently from the sidelines, begins to rouse. Not fully, not frantically, but just enough to send out a whisper of its own. A signal. A sleepy little alarm. This alarm doesn't clang or flash. It flows. Through lymph and blood, through valleys of tissue and pathways only the body knows. It is more like a change in the wind than a siren. Cells begin to shift their attention. Those who were sweeping streets now raise their heads. Those who were dozing gently in corners begin to stir. The town doesn't panic, but it does begin to prepare. And all of this hush and movement begins with something impossibly small. A virus, perhaps no more than a bundle of instructions wrapped in a coat. No bigger than a speck of dust caught in a sunbeam, yet it carries the potential to reshape the rhythm of everything around it. Your body doesn't rage against it. Not yet. It listens. It learns. It begins to remember. The town stretches, and the story slowly unfolds, all because something small tiptoed across its threshold, something unfamiliar arriving without a sound. Let's return to the quiet town beneath your skin, where everything moves slowly and with purpose. Streets curve like rivers through soft hills of muscle and bone. The houses are cells, humming in their own little rhythms. The lights flicker gently. The air is warm. Even while you sleep, this town never fully rests. It drifts, but it does not disappear. And high above it all, perched in invisible towers made of tissue and fluid, the watchers wait. They are not tall in stature. They have no eyes, no ears, no lanterns to hold up against the dark, but they are watchers all the same. The immune system, ancient and tireless, keeps its vigil from quiet corners of your body. It doesn't leap into action at the first sign of trouble. It waits, it listens, it watches for patterns, for whispers, for changes so subtle they barely rustle the leaves of your inner world. These watchers are called immune cells, and they are many. Some patrol, drifting lazily through blood and lymph, like soft clouds on a summer breeze. Others stay anchored in place, nestled in the walls of your organs, silent but alert. They know what belongs, and just as gently, they know what doesn't. Not because someone told them, but because they remember. Not memories the way we think of them, but cellular memories, patterns stored in their shape, in their touch, in the way they respond. When something unfamiliar arrives, like our little virus from before, the watchers don't panic. They do not raise a sword or ring a bell. They send a signal, a ripple in the calm. Not loud, not sudden, but enough to stir the others. It is as if a breeze passed over a pond, just enough to wrinkle the surface. That ripple travels, carried by chemical messengers so small they would vanish if you tried to hold them. They glide from cell to cell, from one sleepy watchtower to another. Soon, the quiet town begins to shift. More watchers take notice. They gather their strength slowly. They do not rush. Everything in the immune system unfolds like a ceremony, deliberate and precise. It takes time to wake up the whole system, time to check the maps, to read the old scrolls, to decide whether this new visitor is truly a danger. And in the meantime, your body continues its rhythm, breathing, beating, resting, waiting. The watchtower never sleeps, even if you do. Even in your deepest dreams, the sentinels of your body are there, drifting through silent rivers of blood. They have no eyes, but they see. They have no mouths, but they speak. And when they sense that something is out of place, they don't shout. They whisper to one another, and that whisper, soft as falling snow, is enough to begin a chain of responses that may one day save your life. Let's take a soft turn now, away from the invader, away from the watchtower. Let's wander for a while into the idea of prevention, of preparation, of giving the body a head start before the first shadow even arrives. That's where the story of vaccines begins, not with panic or pain, but with a gentle question. What if the body could learn without suffering? To understand a vaccine, picture a library that hasn't yet been built, a room waiting for books that haven't been written. The immune system has shelves and filing cabinets and endless quiet places where it stores memories of every enemy it's ever met. But before a vaccine, those shelves are empty. The invader is a stranger. There's no folder, no page to turn, just confusion, a delay. And that delay is what illness needs to spread. A vaccine steps in like a storyteller. It brings not the threat, but the tale of the threat. It does not bring fire. It brings the story of fire, told in whispers and diagrams and maps. When the immune system listens, it takes notes. It files away the shapes and scents and signals. It rehearses quietly in the background. So if the real fire ever arrives, the system does not need to panic. It knows the ending already. The trick is in how the story is told. Vaccines come in many forms. Some bring a lifeless fragment of the virus, just a husk. Others offer a blueprint, like handing the body a recipe written in invisible ink. There are even some that bring a softened version of the virus itself, too weak to cause harm, but just bold enough to spark a memory. No matter the form, the goal is always the same, not to fight, but to teach, It is like showing a child a photo of a wolf, so they can recognize it in the woods without needing to be chased, like practicing a fire drill without the house ever catching flame. The body learns best when it has time to consider, time to file things neatly. A vaccine offers that gift. It doesn't ask the immune system to rush. It simply asks it to remember. Once the story has been told, the immune system shifts. It adds new files to its shelves. It prints new keys and grows new cells that specialize in spotting this particular invader. They don't fight today, but they will be ready tomorrow, all because a vaccine knocked softly on the door and offered a quiet preview of the future. So now, when the real virus comes, it is not a stranger. It is recognized, tracked, greeted not with confusion, but with quiet confidence, because the story was told early, and the body, ever watchful and ever wise, was listening the whole time. Imagine a classroom lit by candlelight. The desks are small and the chairs are empty, but you can almost hear the faint rustle of papers turning. This is not a place of chaos or battle. It is a place of rehearsal, and the students here are your immune cells gathered not to fight, but to study. The teacher arrives silently, no grand entrance, just a whisper of presence. It is not a real threat. It is a shadow of one, a piece of something that once had teeth, now made harmless, a ghost with no power, only form. This is the strange beauty of a vaccine. It does not wait for danger to come knocking. It invites in a harmless version of that danger ahead of time, something that looks just enough like the real thing to provoke curiosity, to spark recognition, but not strong enough to cause true harm. Sometimes that ghost is made of proteins. Sometimes it is an empty shell. Sometimes it is a softened version of a virus that has been stripped of its strength. What matters is not what it can do, but what it reminds the body of. The immune system, sitting quietly in its rows, begins to study. Not in panic, not with weapons drawn, but with patient attention. It observes the shape of the intruder, the way it moves, the way it signals. It learns to recognize the surface of the ghost. The immune cells begin to craft tiny tools that fit the shape exactly. They practice. They compare notes. And then they remember, because that is what the immune system is built for, not just to fight, but to remember. This training does not involve pain. It does not tear through the body like a true infection. It is more like a dress rehearsal before a play. All the lines are spoken, all the roles are tested, but the curtains never rise on actual danger. The stage remains untouched. Over time, the immune cells who attend this rehearsal become specialists. They know the shape of the enemy. They know how to respond. They quietly train others. Some of them tuck away their knowledge deep inside the body, waiting for the day they are needed. They are the memory keepers. Others stand ready to act the moment the real virus dares to appear. They do not need to scramble. They do not need to guess. They have already seen the ghost. They know exactly what to do. So the body becomes a fortress prepared before the siege ever begins. Not bristling with force, but calmly equipped. Not armed with fear, but with quiet understanding. The vaccine has left behind no scar, only a lesson. A soft imprint of something that never had to hurt you in order to teach you. And in that candlelit classroom, the ghost vanishes. Its work is done. The students close their books and rest, ready for something that may never come. Inside your body there are libraries that never close. They do not have books or pages or lamps swinging from the ceiling, but they hold knowledge all the same. This knowledge is written in shapes and proteins, in little folds and creases of cells that remember things most of you never knew happened. These are the memory keepers of your immune system. They are quiet, often tucked away in the shadows, but they hold some of the most important lessons your body has ever learned. After a vaccine has introduced its ghostly visitor and the immune system has rehearsed its gentle defense, not all of the cells go back to sleep. Some of them are chosen to stay awake a little longer. These cells do not fight or chase or destroy. They remember. They become guardians of memory, each one carrying the imprint of what was just encountered. If you could look closely, closer than any microscope could see, you might find the memory of a virus stored in a curl of protein, a whisper of an invader that was never truly there. These memory cells are not everywhere, but they are always enough. Some live in your lymph nodes, nestled like tiny monks in a monastery. Others roam slowly through your bloodstream, keeping a gentle eye out for any hint of something familiar. They do not shout, they do not rush, they wait. And waiting, in their world, is not a passive thing. It is an act of constant readiness. They have been trained not just to remember, but to act quickly if what they remember ever returns. Because when real infection strikes, there is no time for study or debate. The immune system must respond swiftly, and it can do so only if it has already seen the enemy's face. That is why the memory keepers are so important. They are not protectors in the loudest sense. They are protectors through foresight. In a way, they are like a firefly you saw once as a child. The light it cast, the pattern it danced, lives somewhere in the back of your mind. If you ever see that flicker again, even decades later, you will know. You will remember. Your body does the same. The memory cells carry with them a familiarity, like a scent on the wind or a note in a melody, and they respond in kind. Vaccines give these memory keepers their first lesson without letting the body suffer for it. They hand over the details early, when there is no threat, and the memory cells hold onto those details like an old postcard from a trip never taken. Just a glimpse, just enough, and in that glimpse is safety. So, even as you lie quietly in sleep, your body holds these silent sentinels. They ask for nothing, they speak rarely, but should the need arise, they will be the first to stir, and because of them, danger may never need to fully arrive at all. There is something so small and fleeting about it that it's easy to miss. The quiet moment when a needle meets skin, a tiny pinch, a blink, a second, and it's over. You might feel the cold of the alcohol before it. You might feel the soft pressure of the hand holding your arm, but the prick itself is almost nothing. A flicker in time, a whisper of contact. And yet, inside that moment, something extraordinary begins. The needle is not a threat. It is a messenger. What it carries is not harm, but a kind of folded story. Inside that drop, too small to see, are instructions, patterns, and quiet disguises. It is not delivering pain. It is delivering a memory that has not yet happened. A soft rehearsal for a danger that may never arrive. The vaccine within travels just beneath the surface, like a message sent by paper boat across a moonlit pond. It carries no weapon, only a suggestion. A question, really. What would you do if this were real? The immune system, always listening beneath the surface of things, hears the question right away. It pauses for a moment, surprised perhaps, and then begins to read. Not aloud, not with words, but with receptors and responses and curiosity woven into chemistry. It does not panic. It prepares. It scans the shape of what has been delivered. It takes in the scent and the feel of it, and then it begins its quiet work. The cells closest to the injection site become messengers. They carry the new information to others. They gather in soft clusters like animals around a shared fire, passing details from one to the next. Soon, the whole immune system begins to hum with awareness. Not because a real virus has arrived, but because the sundar, the possibility of one, has been imagined. And that is all it needs. Not battle, not noise, just a gentle nudge in the right direction. The vaccine never lingers. Its work is quiet and brief. Like a travelling storyteller who visits the village, tells a tale, and leaves before dawn, the immune system does not forget the visit. It tucks the story away, builds a model of it, and saves it for later, so that if the real thing ever comes knocking, there is no fear. There is only recognition. There is only the memory of the story, once told. From the outside, it may look like nothing happened at all, a moment of contact, a small bandage, a sigh. But beneath the surface, something extraordinary has begun. A whisper has become a plan. A stranger has become familiar. The body has begun to dream of protection it may one day need. And all of it started with a needle, quiet and quick, telling a story that only the cells could hear. There is something hauntingly elegant about a virus. It is not alive in the way we usually think. It does not breathe or grow or think. It cannot wander on its own or decide where to go next. It has no voice, no mind, no hunger, and yet it moves through the world like a whisper in a cathedral, a thread of instructions wrapped in a shell, silent until it finds a host. But inside a vaccine, that whisper has been silenced even further. What is delivered is not the full song but just a single note, a virus without a voice, a presence without intent. The shell of something that once might have caused harm, now carefully stripped of its power. What remains is structure, shape, a costume with no actor inside, just enough to teach, never enough to harm. The immune system sees it and tilts its head, like a librarian spotting a book it does not recognize. It opens the cover gently. It flips through the pages. There are no words, only pictures. No action, only form. But that is enough. The body begins to learn the outline of the thing. It notices the curves, the spikes, the delicate folds. These patterns are studied, committed to memory, and passed along to others. The body does not need the virus to speak. It only needs to know how it looks. Like a scarecrow in a field, the silent virus in a vaccine cannot do what its living cousin can. It cannot multiply, it cannot trick, it cannot spread, but it serves a different purpose now. It trains, it warns, it prepares. The immune system circles around it, curious but calm. The cells begin to build tools to match its shape. These tools, called antibodies, are like tiny keys. They are carved in silence, designed to fit the locks that only this quiet stranger might one day carry. Once the training is done, the body lets go of the ghost. The fragments are cleared away, dissolved, forgotten by everything except the memory keepers. No damage is done, no illness has taken hold, but the blueprint remains. Tucked away in the soft places where the immune system keeps its secrets, ready to be summoned if the real virus ever arrives, full of noise and movement. And when that day comes, the voice may rise, but it will not find an audience unprepared. The body will recognize the face, the alarm will sound softly, the keys will be brought forth, and the response will be swift, not because the body panics, but because it remembers, because once upon a time, a virus without a voice came quietly through the door, and the body, ever curious and ever cautious, listened anyway. Let us wander now into the world of disguises. Imagine a masked ball held in a quiet candlelit room. The guests arrive draped in silk and mystery, their faces hidden behind painted masks. They move gracefully through the crowd, impossible to identify at first glance. Some wear their secrets lightly, Others hide with great care. Among them, there is one guest who is not here to dance. This guest wears a virus's face and drifts from body to body, cloaked in illusion. Some viruses are masters of disguise. They change their outer layers like costumes in a play. One moment they wear a coat of red, the next a shimmer of blue. The body sees the colors but not the shape beneath. It tries to remember, but the memory fades. It looks for one pattern, but the virus shows another. This is the masquerade, a dance of deception, a swirl of ever-shifting forms. The immune system is not easily fooled, but it is careful. It learns by recognition. It holds on to images of what it has seen before. If those images no longer match, it must learn again. This takes time, and time is what viruses crave. The more they change, the harder they are to catch. It becomes a chase, not of speed, but of memory. A fog drifts over the familiar, and what once was known becomes uncertain again. But vaccines offer a clever counter to the mask. Instead of waiting for the virus to arrive in full costume, they teach the body to see what lies beneath. Some vaccines use parts of the virus that are less likely to change. They find the pieces that stay the same, no matter what color the virus wears. These pieces become the focus. They are steady, they are reliable. The body learns to recognize the shape behind the shimmer. It is like seeing the outline of a dancer instead of the mask she wears. There are also newer kinds of vaccines that teach in more abstract ways. They do not show the virus directly. Instead, they send instructions, recipes, blueprints. The body becomes the builder. It creates the part of the virus it needs to learn from, then studies it, stores it, and lets it go. In this way, the immune system is not just a listener, it becomes a participant in the preparation. Even in a masquerade, even in the middle of a swirling ballroom full of tricks and patterns, the body finds its way. It begins to understand how to look beyond the glitter. It learns to listen for the rhythm beneath the melody. The immune system grows wiser, not louder. And in the quiet moments before the next disguise appears, it is already ready, because long ago, through a whisper of a vaccine, the truth behind the mask was revealed, and the body, calm and alert, remembered what others might forget. Inside you, there is an army, but it is not like any army you might imagine. It does not march in lines or wear uniforms. It does not shout or stomp or shine with brass buttons. This army moves in silence. It drifts like fog through the bloodstream, rests like dew along the edges of tissue, and gathers quietly wherever it is needed. Its soldiers are soft, not in strength, but in presence. They do not need to be seen to be ready. Each type of cell plays a different part. Some are scouts, always searching for something out of place. Others are messengers, passing notes written in molecules from one part of the body to another. Some are warriors, trained to act swiftly if they recognize a threat. And some are memory keepers, as we've met before, watching from the shadows with a story tucked under their cellular sleeves. All of them move with a calm sense of purpose, as if the body is a garden they are sworn to protect. This army does not react to everything. It chooses its moments. It listens, it waits. A scratch on the skin will summon some of them. A splinter beneath a fingernail will call a few more. But a virus is something different. It does not arrive with fanfare. It sneaks in. It slips through the smallest of cracks, wearing the masks we have spoken of, and that is when the quiet army begins to stir. When a vaccine is introduced, this army does not leap into battle. There is no enemy yet, only a warning, only a rehearsal. The cells do not panic, they gather, they take in the shapes of the visitor, they discuss, they prepare. Some cells build tools, others build strategies, It is like a village gently practicing what to do if the river ever floods. There is no fear, just readiness. What is remarkable is that the army remembers this practice. Long after the vaccine has faded, the instructions remain. The soldiers are not only ready, they are wiser. They carry the shape of the virus in their minds, not to fear it, but to recognize it, to welcome it with precision. So if the real thing arrives, the army does not scramble. It moves with grace. It responds with confidence. It becomes a symphony of protection, quiet but profound. And all of this happens beneath the surface, while you tie your shoes, while you sip your tea, while you dream. Your soft army is always present, always listening, always keeping the peace in ways you cannot feel or hear. The vaccine does not turn it into something it is not. It simply teaches it a new song to sing, should the moment ever call for it. So, sleep comes easier when you know the quiet watchers are there, not with banners or drums, but with memory and care, and the body, wrapped in its own soft strength, is never truly unguarded. Not everything the body does is loud. Some messages are passed like folded notes beneath a door. Some alarms are no more than a change in temperature. If you have ever felt a small fever after a vaccine, you may have wondered why. A warmth that rises like a mist just behind your forehead, a heaviness that settles gently in your limbs. It may feel like something is wrong, but in truth, something very right is beginning. The body does not shout when it learns. It warms. That heat is not fire, not war, not punishment. It is more like a signal whispered from cell to cell. It says, "Wake up, we have something new to study." The temperature rises just enough to let certain cells move faster, to make the environment a little less friendly for intruders, even pretend ones. It is a signal more ancient than words, written in the biology of every creature that has ever needed to defend itself. A fever is the language of learning. It tells the immune system that there is work to do. It tells the bones to release more white blood cells and the blood to move them more swiftly. It tells the body to slow down, to rest, to focus inward. Even in its discomfort, the fever serves a purpose. It is a lullaby for your busy life, asking you to stay still while your cells arrange themselves into wisdom. After a vaccine, that small wave of heat may come and go within a day or two. It is not the illness itself, it is only the rehearsal, a brief act of remembering something the body has only just seen for the first time. That heat is your immune system lighting a few extra lanterns in the hallways so it can see more clearly. It is not harm, it is preparation. Sometimes it brings with it a touch of fatigue, a desire to nestle into blankets and sleep a little longer. That is no accident. The body is pulling its energy inward, using it not for errands or noise or work, but for building. Inside, cells are copying information, crafting antibodies, assembling little libraries of knowledge that will stay with you long after the warmth fades. The fever does not burn out of control, it flickers. It dances just high enough to signal that the system is awake and learning. Then, as the lessons are completed, it retreats. The temperature lowers, the hum of the body returns to its usual rhythm, and the immune system, just slightly wiser now, tucks away its new tools and settles into a quieter state. So when you feel that warmth after a vaccine, know that it is not a warning but a whisper, a murmur passed gently through the tissues of your body. It is the sound of your cells becoming something more than they were, a quiet rise in temperature that leaves behind not just comfort but protection. If you could shrink yourself down until molecules became mountains, you would find a world of quiet instruction taking place just beneath your skin. It is a world with no chalkboards or classrooms, no desks, no textbooks, And yet learning is happening all the time. The teachers here are not people, not even whole cells. They are proteins and fragments and floating pieces of information. They have no voice, but they speak. They have no hands, but they guide. These are the invisible teachers that live inside every vaccine. When a vaccine enters your body, it brings a lesson. The lesson is not told in paragraphs. It is written in shapes. These shapes are the outer coats of viruses or tiny pieces of genetic code that tell your cells how to build something new, just enough to spark a reaction, but not enough to make you sick. These shapes are carefully chosen to resemble the most important parts of a virus, the parts that allow it to slip past your natural defenses. And by showing them to the body early, the immune system gets to learn the trick before the magician arrives. The immune system is curious. It does not need a threat to begin investigating. It sees these new shapes and sends out scouts. The scouts carry the shapes to more specialized cells, who begin their work without delay. They compare these new patterns to the ones already in their memory. They begin building new antibodies, and all of this happens without you needing to think. While you go about your day or rest beneath your blankets, these microscopic students are listening and learning. Some vaccines do not even bring the shape itself. They bring instructions, messages made of molecules, written like recipes for the body to follow. Your cells read them, follow the steps, and build a harmless version of the viral shape. This homemade teacher does not stay long. It delivers the lesson, then disappears. But the memory remains. There is something deeply beautiful about this. A fragment of information enters your body. It does not force or break or burn. It simply teaches. It says, this is what danger might look like one day. Here is how you can prepare. The immune system, always eager to expand its knowledge, responds with quiet energy. It builds, it remembers, it grows stronger in ways you cannot feel. Even after the vaccine is gone, the lesson it carried lives on. It becomes part of your inner library. It becomes part of your quiet readiness. The invisible teachers do not need to stay. They were never meant to. Their gift is brief. But the wisdom they leave behind can last for years, sometimes a lifetime. And in that way, your body learns how to protect itself from things it may never even meet. All of it begins with something too small to see, passing through you with the gentlest of touches, leaving behind only knowledge. Deep inside your body, tucked beneath your skin and between your bones, are sleepy little villages you rarely think about. You have carried them with you since before you were born. They sit silently in places like your neck, your armpits, your belly, and behind your knees, small clusters of tissue no bigger than a marble, and yet these tiny places are always alert, always watching. These are your lymph nodes, the soft lantern-lit villages of your immune system. You might not notice them at all until something stirs them. A mild swelling under your jaw when you have a cold. A gentle ache near your shoulder after a vaccine. That is their way of saying we are busy right now. We are gathering. We are preparing. These villages do not sleep. They are full of activity, like a town square on the eve of a festival, only quieter and deeper. When a vaccine enters the body, it does not stay in one place. It travels. And one of its first destinations is a lymph node. It is welcomed not with suspicion, but with interest. The immune cells living there begin to examine the guest. They compare its pieces to what they have seen before. They discuss. They share. They teach one another. The village hums with activity. The architecture of a lymph node is delicate. Inside are tiny passageways and open chambers, highways made of fluid where cells drift slowly through like travelers seeking guidance. The vaccine's message moves through these paths, touching one cell after another. Some of the cells it meets are naive, like students on their first day of school. Others are experienced, ready to guide and shape the response. The conversations are not spoken, they are passed in molecules and touch. But they are conversations all the same. In these moments, the village becomes a place of creation. Antibodies are shaped and sharpened, memory cells are born, plans are made, strategies are rehearsed. All from a visitor that brought no danger, only a story. The village is transformed, but only temporarily. Once the message has been received and the lessons taken to heart, the hum begins to fade. The swelling settles, the ache dissolves, but the knowledge stays behind. These sleepy villages are not loud or showy. They do not seek attention, but their work is vital. They are the meeting halls and training grounds of your inner world. They are where decisions are made in silence, where learning happens in the dark, where defense is born not from battle, but from preparation. You may never feel them again for years, but they will still be there, lighting their lanterns each time something new arrives. Quiet little places that keep your body ready, even while you sleep. Their lights never fully go out. They are always listening, always waiting for the next story to arrive. Sometimes, the best way to teach the body how to face danger is to show it a version that cannot hurt it, a mimic, a softened echo, a guest who wears the same face as the real threat, but brings with it only the kindness of preparation. These are the friendly imposters, used in some types of vaccines. They arrive not to fight, but to pretend, not to cause harm, but to gently awaken the immune system with a performance. These imposters are often weakened versions of the virus, alive, but too tired to do much of anything. Their edges are dull, their movements are slow, they cannot spread wildly or cause serious illness, but they still carry the right face. And that is what matters. The body recognizes the outline, the shape of the stranger, the way it moves, and even in its gentle form, the virus is enough to rouse curiosity. The immune system does not know this version is safe. It sees the familiar patterns and begins its usual work. It does not leap into action all at once. It listens, it investigates, it quietly begins to gather its tools. It does not need to panic. The imposter is too weak to cause chaos, but the immune system treats it seriously, like a rehearsal it is taking to heart. This type of vaccine is very old in its wisdom. It has been used for decades, long before the discovery of microscopic messages or protein codes. It is simple in its method, yet remarkably effective. The friendly imposter moves slowly through the body, allowing time for the immune cells to circle it, to respond, to remember, like a teacher who lets the class ask questions before moving on. There may be a mild reaction, a small fever, a few aches. These are not signs of danger, but signs of learning. The immune system is taking notes. It is building memory. It is shaping antibodies with hands that are practiced and precise. All the while, the imposter fades, its energy spent, its job complete. It will not linger. It cannot. Once it has passed, the memory remains. The body now carries a map of the real virus. It knows the terrain. It knows the markers. If the true threat ever arrives, it will not catch the body by surprise. The guards are already in place. The response will come swiftly, without confusion, because the imposter came first, wearing the same face but asking only for a moment of the body's attention. It is a strange kindness to be protected by something pretending to be dangerous, but in that gentle performance, your body finds a path to resilience, not through harm, through mimicry, through memory, through a lesson told softly and just in time. Somewhere inside you, a quiet rehearsal is always taking place. It does not begin with music or applause. There is no stage, no audience, no spotlight. But still, the practice goes on. Your immune system repeats its lines. It smooths out its movements. It shapes its tools again and again until they fit just right. Even when there is no danger nearby, it keeps preparing, because one day there might be. The idea of practice is not only for dancers or musicians. The body believes in it too. The more often something is seen, the more easily it is remembered. This is how habits form, how memories settle into place, and how protection becomes second nature. When a vaccine arrives, it does not just deliver information, it offers the chance to rehearse. Not once, but sometimes many times. With each round, the immune system becomes more confident, faster, smoother, not frantic, just focused. This is why some vaccines come in more than one dose. The first meeting between the body and the visitor is like an introduction. A gentle hello. The immune system listens. It builds a small response. It keeps a few notes in the margins. Then comes the second meeting, and perhaps even a third. Each time, the body remembers more. It builds stronger responses. It sharpens its recognition. The antibodies become more precise. The memory cells multiply, like learning a song not just by hearing it, but by singing it over and over again until it becomes part of you. The body does not mind repeating itself. It finds rhythm in repetition. It becomes wiser through familiarity. And just like a person practicing a dance step until it feels effortless, the immune system repeats its moves until they require no hesitation. This is not effort for the sake of exhaustion. It is gentle. It is thoughtful. It is learning, layered slowly like brushstrokes on a canvas. Sometimes, people feel a little more of a reaction with a second or third dose. That is not the body struggling. It is the body remembering. It recognizes the visitor faster, responds more fully, stretches a little further. The warmth, the tenderness in the sty, the fatigue. These are small echoes of a system that is doing exactly what it was taught to do. Practice does not always look quiet. Sometimes it hums. Over time, this rehearsal becomes a kind of mastery. If the real virus ever arrives, the body will not need to start from the beginning. It will not fumble for the right response. It will act with clarity and purpose, all because it practiced, all because it was given the story before the danger. In this way, vaccines do not just teach the body what to do. They help the body do it well. They give it the space to learn gently, to grow slowly, and to become something stronger without ever needing to face the full storm. Inside the soft rivers of your body, there are tiny travelers carrying with them something very special. These are not warriors in the way stories often describe. They do not carry weapons or shields. They do not seek destruction. What they carry are keys. Each one is shaped with careful hands by the immune system. They are not made of metal, but of proteins, folded so precisely that they can find the smallest locks hiding on the surface of things that do not belong. These keys are called antibodies. Once a vaccine has whispered its quiet lesson into the body, these antibodies begin to appear. They do not rush. They are crafted slowly, shaped with intention, made to fit exactly what the immune system has seen. The shape of a spike, the curve of a shell, the texture of a surface. Every antibody is made to match something very specific, and when they find it again, they know exactly what to do. Imagine walking through a hall full of locked doors. Each one leads somewhere unknown. But your body, after learning from a vaccine, begins to make keys for those doors. When the real virus shows up, the body does not have to guess which door it opened. it has already seen the keyhole. The antibodies fit into the virus like puzzle pieces. They do not destroy it directly. They bind to it. They mark it. They tell the rest of the immune system, this one does not belong here. Once the virus has been marked, other cells come along to finish the job. Some will eat it, some will break it down, others will sound the alarm for more help. But the antibodies are the ones who recognize it first. They are the quiet locksmiths who remember the shape of every intruder the body has trained for, and they carry those memories in every curve and fold. The beautiful part is how flexible this system is. Your body can create millions of different antibodies, not all at once, and not all the time, but as needed. Each new shape that enters the body becomes a new challenge, a new key to be made. And once that key exists, it can be made again faster and more precisely in the future. The vaccine gives the immune system the chance to practice building those keys in advance. So, if a real threat ever appears, there is no delay. The keys are already in hand. It is a quiet defense, a soft mechanism, nothing flashy, no roaring sound. Just the patient fitting of key to lock and the gentle turning of the immune system toward awareness. The virus may slip in with silence, but the antibodies meet it with memory. So, even as you sleep, your bloodstream hums with these locksmiths, drifting gently in the dark, carrying tiny keys that remember what your waking mind may never need to know. There is something comforting in the idea of safety shared, not just between friends or neighbours, but among people who may never meet. A protection that floats quietly through the air we breathe and the spaces between us. Herd immunity is not loud. It is not made of barriers or walls. It is made of people who have learned something and carry that knowledge in their bodies like lanterns, each one flickering with its own quiet flame. When enough people in a community are immune to a virus, the virus has fewer chances to move, fewer doorways to pass through, fewer places to hide. It is like a candle flickering, in the wind, slowly running out of air, not because it was blown out, but because there is no longer enough space for it to grow. This kind of immunity builds slowly, person by person, vaccine by vaccine, until the community itself becomes a soft blanket of protection. Some people cannot receive vaccines. Their bodies may be too fragile, too young, or too ill. They rely on the shield built by others, and when herd immunity is strong, they are carried by it, wrapped in its warmth, without ever needing to lift a finger. It is one of the quietest acts of kindness we can offer one another, a gift that asks for nothing in return, just the shared understanding that we are not islands, that the choices we make ripple out beyond ourselves. The idea is simple, but powerful. If enough people are prepared, the virus cannot find a way through. It may knock, it may try the windows, but the doors stay closed. Each immune person becomes part of the story, part of the silence that follows where once there might have been illness. And in that silence, others find peace. A vaccine does not only protect the person who receives it, it softens the path for everyone else, even the people we do not know, even the people we will never meet. A grandmother in another town, a stranger on a bus, a child too young to understand. All of them are touched by the choices made quietly, gently, in rooms like your own. Herd immunity does not arrive all at once. It drifts in slowly, like morning fog rising from the fields. It grows stronger as more people add their light. And even though it cannot be seen or held, it is one of the strongest forces we have. It turns individuals into communities, and strangers into quiet guardians of one another's health. And so the virus finds fewer places to go. The chain is broken, the fire burns out, not because one person stood alone, but because many stood quietly together, each carrying the memory of something their bodies had learned to resist. And in that togetherness, the world sleeps a little easier. There are stories written in your blood that you have never lived, histories of diseases you never felt, battles you never fought. Your body carries them all the same. Not because it suffered, but because it was taught. Vaccines allow you to inherit the memory of a danger without ever having known its touch. They make your body older in a gentle way, wiser without the wear of illness, experienced without the ache of recovery. Imagine your blood as a winding river. It flows without pause, winding past the organs, through the muscles beneath the skin. Along its banks are tiny watchtowers. Inside those towers are guards with long memories. When a vaccine is given, a new chapter is written into the river, a quiet entry, a message that says, "This is what danger might look like. Remember it well." And so the guards take note. They sketch the shape of the virus. They build tools in response. They send signals to others and store copies of those tools in secret places so they can be remade at a moment's notice. What is beautiful about this process is that it is not reaction. It is preparation. The virus may never come, the threat may never knock, but your body is ready just the same. This is a kind of time travel. Your immune system leaps ahead, learns the outcome before the story has begun. It rewrites what would have been a dangerous encounter into something quiet and invisible. The illness never gets to start because the ending is already known. Your blood remembers the future before it happens. Vaccines also carry a timeline of progress through generations. What you receive today is built from decades of knowledge, layers of understanding passed from one set of hands to another, the early experiments, the silent discoveries, the quiet persistence of researchers who worked through nights and failures to make sure the world would one day be safer. That safety now flows in your veins, soft as a whisper. Sometimes, when you look at an old photograph of a disease long gone, it feels like another world. Images of hospital wards filled with beds, families held in stillness by fear. But now, because of vaccines, many of those threats are barely remembered. They have faded, not because they were forgotten, but because they were prevented. And that prevention lives quietly in the bloodstream of millions, a memory passed forward like a gift. So your blood, moving gently even as you sleep, is not only delivering oxygen or nutrients, it is carrying something more, the memory of battles avoided, the lessons of history absorbed without the scars, the soft voice of science speaking through molecules. And in that voice is time itself, folded gently into your cells, all of it there, drifting endlessly through you, like a river that remembers every lesson it was ever taught. Every now and then, the body gets a little confused. Even the most practiced orchestra may stumble on a note. Even the wisest librarian may misplace a page. After a vaccine, some people feel small shifts in their body, a sore arm, a few chills, a tiredness that seems to rise from nowhere. These are not signs of trouble, they are signs of learning. But sometimes, learning brings with it a little uncertainty. Your immune system is incredibly detailed in how it sees the world. It reads the shapes of proteins like fingerprints. It notices textures and signals and the smallest of signs. But in its eagerness to respond, it may briefly treat the safe visitor of a vaccine as something it needs to be more serious about. For a short while, the body may act as though it is under threat. Even when it is only rehearsing, it is not panic. It is more like a daydream that momentarily blends with real life. A slight fever can rise. Muscles can ache. The lymph nodes can stir. These responses are gentle and temporary, and they come from a system that is trying to do the right thing. It has been given a message, and it is responding. With care, perhaps a little more than is necessary, but with good intent. It does not know that the virus it sees is only a copy, a faded sketch. It only knows that it should be ready. This overreaction is not a failure. It is a sign that your immune system is awake and responsive. Think of it like a guard who has been shown a photograph of someone suspicious. The guard studies the image closely. So when anyone resembling that image appears, the guard pays close attention, not because of fear, but because of preparedness. Sometimes the resemblance is too strong, and the body reacts more boldly than it needs to. These small reactions pass quickly. The body adjusts. It realizes the mistake. It calms itself. The systems that stirred begin to settle. And what remains is not confusion, but memory, a clearer picture, a better understanding. If the real virus ever appears, the immune system will now respond with the right amount of force, not too much. Not too little, but just enough. Some people may not feel any reaction at all. Others may feel a little more than expected. Both responses are part of the same story. They are the result of a system that is always learning, always adjusting. The body is like a student who sometimes studies a little too hard, only to realize the test was easier than expected. The extra effort is never wasted. It simply becomes part of the lesson. So if your body feels a little out of rhythm after a vaccine, let it rest. Let it finish its rehearsal. What feels like confusion is really the process of becoming wiser, one quiet response at a time. Long before we had microscopes or lab coats or refrigerators humming gently in hospital halls, people were already noticing patterns. They did not yet know about viruses. They could not see cells. But they watched, and they remembered. There was something about those who had survived one illness that seemed to protect them from catching it again, especially when the illness was smallpox. A sickness that moved like fire through towns and families, leaving behind scars on the skin and sorrow in its wake. Somewhere in the quiet corners of the world, among milkmaids and farmers, a curious detail began to rise. Those who had once caught cowpox, a far gentler disease, seemed untouched when smallpox came near. The milkmaids carried no scars, their skin stayed smooth, their health remained. It was a mystery passed in stories and quiet conversations, from cottage to cottage, from village to village. And then, one day, someone decided to ask the question out loud. In the late 1700s, a doctor named Edward Jenner stepped softly into this story. He watched, he listened, and then he did something simple and brave. He took a small amount of cowpox from one person and introduced it to another, a little boy who did not know he was becoming part of history. The boy felt tired, maybe a little unwell, but he recovered quickly, and when Jenner later exposed him to smallpox, the illness did not take hold. The boy was protected. What had happened was quiet but extraordinary. Jenner had given the child's body a memory of a danger it had never truly known. It was the beginning of something entirely new, a way to teach the body without asking it to suffer, a whisper of illness that left behind strength. And from that small act, a movement began. The word vaccine comes from the Latin word for cow because of that gentle beginning. But the idea did not stay in barns or fields. It spread across countries and generations. Scientists began to search for ways to mimic that effect. They collected fragments of viruses, softened their power, and shaped them into lessons. And with each new step, the science grew more careful, more precise, but always rooted in the same hope, that we might one day protect without pain, that we might give the body a map before it is ever asked to find its way through a storm. Looking back, those early vaccines were fragile things. They needed luck and patience and a great deal of courage, but they opened a door. And today, as vaccines are tucked into tiny glass vials and carried across continents, they still carry echoes of those first experiments. They are built on questions asked centuries ago by people who simply noticed something strange and decided to understand it. And now, because of them, your body can carry the wisdom of the past in every quiet beat of your blood. There are moments in history that unfold like a quiet breath. No trumpet, no crowd, just a simple action taken with care. One such moment happened in the English countryside, where a doctor named Edward Jenner spent his days watching more than treating. He was not working in a grand laboratory. He was not surrounded by polished instruments or long rows of flasks. He was surrounded by nature, by people, and by questions. At the time, smallpox was not a stranger. It was a cruel companion to daily life. Its scarred faces, stilled lungs, and often left behind an empty space where someone had once been. It seemed inescapable, but Jenner had noticed something. A rumour that whispered through farmhouses and along muddy roads, that milkmaids who had caught cowpox did not seem to fall ill with smallpox. Their hands may have held buckets and rope, but not the scars that marked so many others. He wondered if this was luck, or if it was something more. He did not rush. He observed. He asked questions. He listened to stories told with quiet certainty. Then he made a decision that would change the world in a way no one yet understood. He took the pus from a cowpox sore on the hand of a milkmaid and used it to infect a young boy named James Phipps. It was a strange kind of bravery, to use something so gentle to prevent something so harsh. Jenner was not bringing harm. He was offering protection, wrapped in simplicity. James felt unwell for a few days. A fever, a bit of tiredness. Then he recovered. And when Jenner later exposed him to smallpox, the boy remained healthy. His body had learned something from that quiet exposure. It had prepared itself before danger ever arrived. Jenner had not just tested a theory, he had shown that immunity could be taught. There was no celebration that day, no parade or medal, just a quiet understanding that something had shifted. Jenner continued his work, offering the same protection to others. Slowly, gently, the idea spread, and with time, vaccines were born. The word itself was drawn from vacca, the Latin word for cow, in tribute to that original gentle teacher. It was a small nod to the moment when something soft was used to stop something devastating. Edward Jenner may not have known how far his idea would travel. He could not have imagined airplanes carrying vaccines across oceans, or scientists building them from molecules and code. But he understood something important, that the body can learn without being hurt. That illness does not need to be endured to be understood, and that sometimes the greatest battles can be won with the softest touch. That small experiment in a country garden was the beginning of the first soft fight, a moment where care met courage, and the world began to change, not with thunder, but with kindness and curiosity. There are some memories that linger across generations, not in photographs or journals, but in family stories told softly across time. For many families, one of those stories was polio. It came like a shadow in the summer. It arrived without warning. Children would wake up one morning unable to move a leg or lift an arm. Some lost the ability to walk, others lost their voices. Pools and playgrounds grew quiet. Parents watched anxiously, unsure how to keep something so invisible away from their homes. Polio was strange because it came in silence. Most who caught it never knew. But for a few, the effects were cruel. Legs stiffened, spines curved. Machines were built to help people breathe. The iron lung, a great metal cylinder, became a strange symbol of both survival and confinement. The world needed something to stop it, not just treatment, not just care, a way to prevent it entirely. And so, the quiet work of scientists began again. This time, the breakthrough came with a name many would come to know: Dr. Albert Sabin. He helped to develop a version of the vaccine that did not need a needle or a clinic. It came in a sugar cube, a drop of liquid placed gently on something sweet. No sting, no fear, just a swallow of hope. Children lined up in school gyms and community centres. They were given the sugar cubes like treats. The moment was so simple that many did not realise how powerful it truly was. In that bite of sweetness, their bodies were receiving the information they needed, not from the bitter experience of illness, but from a softened visitor who came only to teach. The body responded in the same way it always does. It looked, it studied, it remembered, it stored the shape of the virus deep inside its memory, so that if the real thing ever came near again, it would be stopped before it had the chance to cause harm. Over time, the number of polio cases began to fall. Streets grew louder with children's laughter. Playgrounds filled again. The stories began to shift from fear to memory, from warning to relief. Polio became a word remembered more than felt. Not because it vanished on its own, but because enough people swallowed that small dose of protection. There was a kind of poetry in the delivery, that something so sweet, so ordinary, could carry such power. A spoonful of sugar, yes, but also a drop of science, a whisper of safety, a lesson carried softly into the body and left behind like a gift. And while the virus had once moved through the world like a ghost in warm months, it now found fewer doors open, fewer lungs to fill, fewer lives to pause. All because someone found a way to protect, not with fear, but with a gentle touch of sweetness on the tongue. There is a kind of quiet magic hidden in the way your body reads instructions, not with eyes or ears or even thoughts, but with tiny moving parts that hum beneath the surface of your skin. The kind of reading that happens without pages, where information flows in threads and every letter matters. One of the newest ways vaccines help the body is through something called mRNA, a name that might sound sharp at first, all consonants and edges, but what it carries is something soft and clever. To understand it, imagine your body as a bakery. Inside are all the ingredients it could ever need, but it does not know what to bake until it is handed a recipe. mRNA is that recipe. A short and temporary message that tells the cell exactly what to make. It does not stay forever. It comes in, gives the instructions, and then fades away like a chalk drawing after the rain. The vaccine does not carry a piece of the virus, not the spike, not the shell, just the instructions to make a harmless part, a tiny piece that looks like the outside of the virus, but without any of its ability to cause harm. The cells take in the message, follow the directions, and begin to make that piece. When it is finished, they place it outside themselves, like a sign in a window, something the immune system can see and recognize. The immune system notices. It always does. It begins to learn, it builds antibodies, it stores memories. But what is beautiful about mRNA is how little it leaves behind. No live virus, no long-lasting code, just a soft interaction, a moment of learning and then silence. The recipe dissolves. The immune system remains alert, but the messenger is gone. Some may wonder how something so new can feel so natural. But mRNA has been in your body all along. Every moment of your life, your cells use it to function, to grow, to heal. It is not foreign. It is familiar. The vaccine simply borrows that same language, the language of the body itself, to teach something useful. What makes this approach so gentle is that it asks the body to participate in its own protection, not just to receive, but to create. The immune system becomes not just a defender, but a builder, a quiet collaborator in its own safety. In time, the mRNA disappears. The piece it created is cleared away, but the memory of the shape remains. The body has been changed, not in its bones or blood, but in its awareness. And it all began with a string of instructions so small you could hold 1,000,000 of them on the head of a pin. That is mRNA's sleepy secret. It does not linger. It does not take. It comes in softly, like a letter slipped beneath the door, and helps your body remember a stranger it may never meet. Memory is a wonderful thing, but even the sharpest memories fade if not gently revisited from time to time. Your immune system remembers the lessons it has learned, but like any student, it sometimes needs a little review, a quiet reminder, a chance to rehearse the lines once more. That is what a booster does. It is not a restart. It is a gentle nudge, a way of saying, remember this. It could be important one day. After your body receives a vaccine, the immune system begins its slow and thoughtful process of learning. It shapes antibodies, it crafts memory cells, it builds a quiet readiness. But over time, those defenses may settle. The body turns its attention to other things. It keeps the memory, but that memory grows a little softer, a little quieter. Still there, but not as strong as before. A booster arrives like a familiar book opened again. The story is the same. The characters have not changed. But reading it once more brings back the details that were beginning to blur. The immune system responds as it did the first time, but faster, more confidently. The antibodies come more quickly. The memory cells multiply. The body becomes sharper in its recognition. Sometimes, boosters are needed because the virus itself has changed. Not completely, but just enough to slip past the memory. A twist in the pattern. A shift in shape. In those cases, the booster is updated. It carries a slightly new version of the story. The immune system reads it carefully, compares it to what it already knows, and adapts. It adds a new chapter to the book it began long ago. Other times, the virus has not changed, but the body has. As we grow older, our immune systems grow quieter, not less capable, just slower to stir. A booster helps wake those systems gently. It brings back the clarity of the first lesson. It reminds the body that the world is still turning, that preparation still matters. Receiving a booster is not a sign that something went wrong. It is a sign that the body is worth tending to. That memory is not a single moment, but a practice. Like watering a plant not because it has wilted, but because you want it to keep blooming. You may not feel anything at all. Or you may feel a small ache, a short-lived fatigue. These are the signs of your body listening, relearning, strengthening its understanding. The booster brings no surprises. Just a return to something your body already knew, and an invitation to hold that knowledge a little longer. So when the time comes to receive another dose, think of it as a second glance at a familiar sky. The stars have not changed, but sometimes it helps to look again and to remember why they mattered in the first place. Even in the quietest hours, when the world has dimmed and minds are soft with sleep, stories continue to travel. Some are true, others only sound true. They drift like mist across screens and whispers, wearing robes of certainty and speaking in calm, confident tones. Misinformation often arrives dressed like comfort. It sounds like something a friend might say while pouring tea. It wears pajamas and smiles and says, "Just trust me." When it comes to vaccines, misinformation tends to bloom in the spaces where fear meets confusion. It grows from questions that deserve answers and worries that deserve kindness. But instead of offering understanding, these stories offer shadows. They say the vaccine is too new, or too rushed, or too unnatural. They suggest it is not needed, or not tested, or not safe. They flourish not because they are strong, but because they sound familiar and require no effort to believe. The truth, though quieter, is steadier. Vaccines are not made in a moment. They are built on decades of knowledge, tested carefully, reviewed deeply, watched by thousands of eyes. The new ones are not built from scratch. They rise from a foundation of science that has been shaped and reshaped by time. They are not shortcuts. They are the result of long roads walked by many. But misinformation does not care for context. It prefers the quick story, the single sentence, the alarming headline. It travels faster than correction. It rarely waits to be questioned, and once it settles in, it becomes harder to shake loose. That is why science must speak, even softly, even slowly, even when the hour is late and the listener is tired. It is natural to be cautious, to wonder, to pause before acting. But true understanding is gentle. It does not demand belief. It invites reflection. It shares evidence and listens to questions. It changes when it must. It admits when it learns something new. Science is not a fortress. It is a conversation, and vaccines are one part of that long, careful exchange. So when someone whispers that a vaccine will change who you are, remember that it is only teaching your body to recognize a single shape. When someone insists the process was too quick, remember that the path was long before the final step began. When someone says it is better to get sick and recover, remember the ones who never had the chance. In a world full of voices, the softest ones can still be the truest. The ones that do not shout, the ones that do not accuse, the ones that sit with you quietly and explain how something works until it makes sense. Trust does not grow from noise. It grows from patience, from openness, from shared understanding. And even when the story wears pajamas and speaks gently, always ask where it came from and whether it is carrying truth or only the shape of it. There is a kind of peace that comes from knowing your body is quietly looking after you, not in a loud or urgent way, but in the way a nightlight glows in the corner of a room, steady, unbothered. Always there. Vaccines are not just a moment in a clinic or a small prick on the arm. They are the beginning of something far more comforting. They allow you to rest without worry, to move through the world with a little more calm, and to sleep with a little more ease. When you receive a vaccine, your body becomes just a little more prepared. It carries with it the shape of something it may never meet, a sketch, a signal, a quiet understanding. And from that understanding comes protection. You do not need to think about it. You do not need to feel it working, but it is there, in the slow rhythm of your breath, in the blood that moves gently through your veins, in the memory tucked inside your cells. This kind of protection is not loud. It does not call attention to itself, but it changes the way the body responds to the world. A stranger may pass close, a threat may drift nearby, and still, your body will know what to do, not because it panicked, but because it practiced, because it was taught before trouble ever came. That is why vaccines help us sleep. Not just because they stop sickness, but because they ease the unseen, the questions that often hum just beneath the surface. Will I be safe? Will my loved ones be safe? With each quiet vaccination, those questions soften. They lose their sharpness. They begin to settle. Even the very act of getting a vaccine can be part of that calm, a choice made for yourself, a gesture made for others, a way to join something larger than yourself, You become part of a story of safety, shared, a single note in a song that many are singing, a drop in a still pond that ripples out farther than you will ever see. You may forget the moment it happened, the date, the room, the small things that surrounded it, but your body will not forget. It will remember the lesson. It will carry the shape. It will hold that small, invisible key ready so that you can rest, so that you can close your eyes without carrying the weight of unknown risks. Sleep comes easier when your body feels safe, not because the world has no danger, but because you are not facing it alone. You are facing it with knowledge, with memory, with protection passed gently into your bloodstream like a lullaby. And in that quiet place between waking and dreaming, you can feel the stillness that comes from being ready. Because sometimes the best shield is not made of steel. It is made of something much softer. A memory, a message, a little lesson learned in advance. So as you drift off now, deeper into the quiet of your room and the warmth of your covers, remember this: your body is not just a place, it's a story still being written. And vaccines are one of the softest plot twists of all, a way for your cells to practice peace, to dream of invaders they'll never need to meet. In the hush of your bloodstream, memories bloom, and that, perhaps, is one of the most comforting things of all. Sleep well tonight, wrapped in the gentle science of preparation, protection, and peace. May your dreams be full of soft armor and silent strength,